Bags. Hey gang, I'm Dr. Who. This is Accounting is a Joke, where accounting makes sense so you can make dollars. Today we're going to take a look at a walkthrough exercise of how to properly record prepaid expenses. If you're unfamiliar with prepaid expenses, don't fret. I dropped a link to a video to get you up to speed in no time. So with that being said, let's get it. Gang, we are talking about prepaid expenses. And what are prepaid expenses? Prepaid expenses are basically assets that are created anytime you prepay on an expense in advance. Expenses can be rent, insurance, advertising, etc. Anytime that you prepay for an expense in advance, you create an asset. That asset through time will get used up because the expense is actually happening. So, in terms of adjusting entries are concerned, anytime that you have a prepaid expense, the adjustment portion will increase the expense because it's finally happening, thus simultaneously decreasing the prepaid asset. But in this particular situation, we're going to walk through the entire process, the initial recording as well as the adjusted entry. So let's get to it. September 1st, big fan of Toledo, prepaid 6 months of rent, $3,300. What are the key words? September 1st, prepaid rent. Now, when dealing with adjusted interest, particularly prepaid expenses, always focus or laser in on the date. The date is important because it reflects time passage. Okay, so on September 1st, we prepaid 6 months of rent. Rent is a key word because it's letting us know that it's an expense that being considered to be paid for. However, that particular expense didn't happen, gang. Why? Because the other key word, prepaid, tells us so. So, the fact that an expense hasn't happened, but we prepaid on it in advance creates a prepaid expense. So we're going to record the initial transaction of creating this prepaid. And so, by definition, because we're paying for it in advance, our cash has to go down. And we know the all-clear system, so basically we're going to credit cash. But what are we going to debit? The asset prepaid. So we're going to debit prepaid rent on September 1st and credit cash. Now, what will be our explanation for this? Easy, gang. To record the rent paid in advance. Okay? And so it'll be for the total of $3,300. So we're going to check our answer, and it's beautifully correct. So requirement 2 tells us to record the adjusted entry on September 30th, gang. So here's the deal. We are no longer on September 1st. We are now recording for September 30th. So what does that mean? 1 month has passed. So during this 1 month of passage of time, what has happened? Remember, on September 1st, we actually recorded an asset. And that asset reflected 6 months of rent paid for in advance. But now 1 month has passed. So what has happened in that month? Rent has happened. And since rent is an expense, during this month, our rent expense has what, gang? You got it, increased. It went up. What also happened? Our prepaid asset, our prepaid rent, because that rent expense went up, should now go down. So that's the actual adjustment, gang. We are decreasing our prepaid rent because our rent expense has finally happened for 1 month. So what's going to be the proper recording for this? We have to increase our rent expense. So we're going to debit rent expense increasing it, gang. But we also must adjust our prepaid rent. So we have to credit it. Now, we're halfway through, but we must remember proper calculation. So how are we going to calculate this, gang? We're going to take the total amount that was paid for in advance, which reflected $3,300. And we are going to multiply times the amount of month that has passed, which is 1 month, and we're going to divide it by the total months that was prepaid, which was 6. So we're going to take 3,300 multiplied times 1 divided by 6. And that should give us 550. And our explanation would be to record the rent expense, gang. So let's see what we have for the answer. Nice work, gang. So this is yet just a very quick illustrative example on how do we go by recording initially the prepaids and adjusting them during the adjusting period. So hopefully that light bulb clicked in this show. Don't be stingy. Like, subscribe, and share the channel with your friends so they can chase the bags as well. I'm Dr. Who, and it's always a humble pleasure within this space sharing my time with you guys. And I look forward to seeing you all soon. Bags!